Hi everybody, this video is a preview of my upcoming video course on IELTS Writing Task 1 and how to achieve a Band 7 and above in this part of the exam. For those who do not know me, my name is Matt and I run a website called The IELTS Teacher, where I help students to pass the IELTS exam via Skype and screen sharing lessons. A few months ago, I released a video course on IELTS Writing Task 2, and this video course has gone on to become the best-selling Udemy video course on IELTS Writing. It has over 1,600 students from over 100 different countries. Out of the over 250 reviews it has got so far, it has a rating of 4.7 out of 5 with over 180 5-star ratings. And you can get 50% off this video course by clicking the link in the description below. Here we are having a look at Lecture 13 in Section 4 of Structuring Our Response. And this lecture is all about how to write a clear, coherent and relevant overview. So let's get started by looking at the band descriptors and what they ask of us. So the overview is one of the most important paragraphs in your Task 1 response. It is explicitly stated as a requirement to achieve anything above a Band 6. In fact, the requirement for Band 6 states that the writer must present an overview with information appropriately selected. Band 5 actually states that there may be no clear overview. So in order to secure at least a Band 6, you need to present an overview. In order to secure a Band 7, you must present a clear overview of main trends, differences or stages. Now in a previous lecture, in Lecture 9, we would have looked at how to identify and discuss trends, differences and stages. That's something that you can check out once the video course is released. But in this lecture, we're just going to look at how to construct a clear overview. Let's get started. First of all, some should and should nots for overviews. What should you not do? Here's a table for us to look at as an example. Now the overview should not contain any specific figures related to that table. For example, do not mention that Bournemouth bought 391 Hondas or Carlisle bought 194 Toyotas. The overview should contain a look at the main trends, differences or stages. Particularly in a comparative graph, comparative table like this one, we might look for the differences. For example, mention instead that the largest number of cars was bought in Chippenham, or that the least popular car brand overall was Toyota. Let's go into a bit more detail here and look at the type of language we want to use for overviews for the different question types. You can see at the bottom here we have a color-coded key. So your overview really should contain cohesive devices, a quick piece of language to introduce the overview, a conjunction to make sure we have a complex sentence, and trend or comparison language. Let's have a look at this here. We're going to begin by looking at graphs with a trend. So here is an example. Overall, here's your cohesive device. Just makes it very clear that you're now in the overview. It is clear from the graph that. Just a little bit more to again make sure the reader knows we're in the overview. Whereas football remained popular throughout the period, basketball experienced a significant fall in popularity. You can see here we've got the conjunction whereas. That's a subordinating conjunction. This ensures that we are addressing the requirement for a complex sentence. We contrast that clause with the following clause, something staying popular with something going down. Basketball experienced a significant fall. So that purple language there, this is a piece of trend language. It experienced a fall. There's a trend there. Now we have an extra sentence here. I will return to this at the end of the lecture, but you do not need to include an extra sentence to secure a band 7 most of the time. Only add this extra sentence if you are confident that you will have enough time to complete the rest of the response to an accurate level as well. Anyway, here is this extra sentence. Additionally, there's the cohesive device. Although, there's the conjunction. Although the number of runners and swimmers grew in similar proportion, trend, the latter then declined as the former continued to increase. Two trends. But notice there are no figures here, no specific numbers, no specific dates. Here's another way that we can write it. Again, we're just looking at the key as we go through. In general, what stands out from the graph is that while football remained popular throughout the period, basketball witnessed a dramatic decline in popularity. Furthermore, despite the number of runners and swimmers growing in similar proportion, the latter then slumped as the former continued to rise. We'll look at one more graph with a trend here, as these tend to be some of the most common ones. Here we're looking at a bar chart for air conditioning units bought in the UK and Australia in the months of 2014. In general, what stands out from the graph is that, so we've got cohesive device in the introduction, while Australia's AC sales witnessed a decline before rising after July, the number of AC units sold in the UK experienced the opposite trend. Another interesting point is that in the month of May, these two countries purchased an equal number of air conditioning units. I've just included AC here because I wanted to keep it short for the slide, but I would recommend that you actually write air conditioning unit sales and the number of air conditioning units sold. So those are graphs with the trend. Let's have a look at comparative graphs here. Again, we'll return to this table on the number of cars sold by town in 2010. This will hopefully start to look familiar now. Overall, it is clear that of the car brands listed, while Chippenham bought marginally more than Bournemouth and Farnborough, Wickham saw by far the fewest purchases. Furthermore, Toyotas were nowhere near as popular as any other car brand. So instead of trend language here, we're using comparison language. Marginally more, by far the fewest, nowhere near as popular as. So if you're looking at a comparative graph or a comparative table, you're more likely to be discussing differences and comparisons than trends. Let's look at a separate one here. Here we have a pie chart and a bar chart looking at different energy sources. In general, what stands out is that non-renewable energy sources constitute the majority of total output, while only a small minority is made up of renewable energy sources. In addition, charging and lighting consume not nearly as much energy as appliances and heating. Again, you can see this comparison language being used, and notice that we can move the conjunction as well. Instead of looking at it at the beginning of the sentence, we've moved while into the beginning of the second clause instead of the first. So it follows the comma. Okay, so that's a little look at comparative graphs. What happens when it comes to processes? Well, here's a process here on how bees make honey and then the production of honey. Overall, it is clear that bees must go through a cyclical progression of 6 stages to make honey, whereas the honey production process consists of 5 steps. Here you've got all the usual suspects. You've got your cohesive device, you've got your overview introduction, you've got your conjunction with whereas. Here we're looking at stage language. We are making a comparison though. We're comparing 6 stages with 5 stages. Another option is to consider listing the first and last stages of each of the processes. Another option still, particularly if you're looking at more of a man-made process, is to consider listing or comparing the amount of equipment used, or consider comparing the number of elements or ingredients that go into a particular cake or recipe or something like that. It's a little bit harder with processes, but do just try to make sure you are introducing some comparisons or listing the overall number of stages. Finally, let's have a look at a map. Map overviews are a little bit trickier because there are a lot of different variables that can be involved, but the majority of maps tend to look at a map from the past with a map from the present or from the recent past, and so we can make comparisons between those two maps. Overall, what stands out from the maps is that whereas Stokeford used to be a quiet agricultural town, it has undergone a significant transformation to become a heavily residential area with many new developments. So here you can see change language, but still comparison language as well. So undergone a significant transformation, many new developments. Again, we're not being specific. We're not picking out the retirement home. We're not picking out the gardens or anything like that. We're looking at things as a whole. So let's sum up with some advice. Some people say that you should write a summary rather than an overview. That's okay. So you can write a summary instead of an overview. Really, it's just a case of changing the position of the paragraph. Some find it easier to finish with the overview rather than put it in the second paragraph position. Just make sure you do not write both an overview and a conclusion. They serve the same purpose, so it's silly to write both. Although you should avoid mentioning any specific figures, it is okay to mention dates, particularly if you're talking about the beginning or the end of a period. For example, whereas chicken was the most popular meat in 1940, turkey had claimed this position by the end of the period. We've introduced 1940 there because it might be the beginning of a period. Finally, if you write about just one comparison or trend in the overview, you are covering task requirements. I mentioned this a bit earlier. I said I'd come back to it. You don't need to write any more than this single sentence. So only add an extra sentence if you feel you'll have time or you do not think you will reach the minimum word count without the extra sentence. I hope you found this preview of my upcoming video course on Mastering IELTS Writing Task 1 useful. Please let me know what you think in the comments and if you're excited about taking this course. And remember that you can always access my Writing Task 2 video course for 50% off by clicking the link in the description.